So I'm going to talk with you about sighting. And sighting is a method that you could use to measure the proportions of what you're looking at, as well as measure angles. And you're going to use just a standard pencil to sight. You could also use the back of a paintbrush. You could use like one of those kebab sticks. Really just a stick is what we're going to use to sight. And one thing I'm going to show you right now, just because it's easier to show you, in this camera position, is how to hold your arm when you sight. Okay, so when you sight, you're gonna be holding your arm all the way out. Okay, and it's gonna look like this. Okay, now sometimes I see students, they hold their arm out like this, but the difficulty is that it's hard to remember exactly where your arm's at if it's bent. So hold your arm all the way out. Okay, so arm needs to be held all the way out. Okay, so I'm gonna show you now how to sight, and there's two ways I'm gonna talk about related to sighting. The first way is how to sight proportions, so we're gonna talk about that. Now, in order to sight proportions, you need to hold your arm all the way out. Okay, and you're gonna wanna keep the eye open that is closest to the arm that you're holding out. And what you're gonna do is you're gonna choose a basic unit. Now, a basic unit is a dimension that you're gonna use to make measurements to other dimensions. Okay, now you're gonna wanna use one dimension. So for example, I could use the height of this coffee cup as a basic unit. When you pick a basic unit, you wanna pick a dimension that's a medium length. Okay, you don't wanna pick something that's too large or too small. So within your still life, find something of a medium length to use as your basic unit. If it's very large, then it's gonna be difficult when you go and you measure something else, because you're gonna realize like, oh, well, it's 1/8 of this length. That's gonna be difficult to draw and use as a measurement in your drawing. Or if you pick something that's too small, then you'll realize that another dimension is like 20 of this basic unit, and that's gonna be hard to draw as well. So pick a dimension that's medium. So that's why I chose the height of the coffee cup. Now, if I choose the height of the coffee cup, I'm gonna use that for all my measurements. So even when I do widths, okay, if I'm measuring this, or if I'm measuring this, I'm still gonna use the height of the coffee cup. You don't wanna use multiple dimensions as things can get confusing. So what I could do is I could use the height of the coffee cup, and I could use that to measure the height of the instant coffee container. Okay, and it's about 2 heights of the coffee cup. So this is 2 heights of this. Okay, now let's check the width of this plate. So we're gonna get the height of the coffee cup, and we're going to measure the width of the plate. Well, it's a little over 2. So these are the types of measurements that you're gonna be making. Okay, you're gonna use one dimension, for, in this example, the height of the coffee cup, and you're gonna use that to make measurements to other dimensions. Now, how do you apply that to a drawing? Well, you're actually first gonna wanna start off by making a gestural drawing of what you see. So if you start off by just making lots of measurements, the drawing process can become very mechanical. So I would suggest using an HB pencil and making a very light gestural drawing. Okay, and it can look something like that. Just keep it light and loose. Okay, now once you have your gestural drawing, then what you can do is you can begin to refine your proportions. So I'm gonna go back, okay, and then I found out that the height of the coffee cup, which is from about right here, it's about right here. Okay, so the height of the coffee cup Okay, so the instant coffee container is 2 heights of the coffee cup. So now I'm gonna go to my drawing, and I'm gonna go like this. Okay, 1, 2. Okay, so that means that the top of it's gonna be right there. We could also use the height of the coffee cup to measure the width of the instant coffee container. Okay, so I'll go like that, and like that, and then we realize that the width of the instant coffee container is 1 height of the coffee cup. Okay, so then we go onto our paper, let me go like this. That's about right here. Okay, and that will help us to draw in these proportions. Now, another way that you can use sighting is to sight angles. And the way you're going to do this is you're going to hold your pencil perfectly horizontal or perfectly vertical. And you're going to compare the angle you see to the angle of your pencil. So for example, if I want to measure this angle, what I could do is I could hold my pencil perfectly vertical, and I'm going to visualize the angle that's made, and I'm going to draw it onto my paper. Okay, so I'm looking at this triangle that's made. And then when I go to my paper, I'm going to visualize that angle. Okay, you could also use it to get an idea of this angle. If I hold my pencil perfectly horizontal, get an idea of this angle. Okay, but it's a little curved, so it's a little bit more confusing. Now, another type of sighting that you could do is you could also hold your pencil perfectly vertical and perfectly horizontal and look for placement. Okay, so if I hold my pencil perfectly horizontal, I could see that this instant coffee container is, the bottom of it begins above the bottom of the coffee cup. Okay, so actually I realized that I put in my drawing, I put this instant coffee container too low. It actually, the bottom of it starts right here. Okay, which means the top of it starts right here. So when you're sketching, okay, and you're establishing proportions, it's good to keep things light. So you can see this right here. If it was very dark, it'd be hard to erase. Now, once you have your drawing lightly sketched with an HB pencil, then you come through with a heavier pencil or a softer pencil, like a 4B or a 2B or whatever, and then you can start to get your more final lines. Okay, and I'm just going to do this in a contour drawing. Okay, and then you could get something that looks more like this. Now this is very sketchy. I mean, for a sketch is okay. For a more refined drawing, you might want to clean up some of these lines. But just to show you the idea of how this works, I'll let it be sketchy for now. So just to review, sighting is a method that you could use to measure proportions as well as measure angles. You're first going to want to start off with a very light and loose gestural drawing, kind of just eyeball the proportions. And then later, you're going to want to do measurements. If you're measuring proportions, you're going to find a basic unit and use that to make measurements to other objects and other dimensions. Or if you're using your pencil or your sighting stick to measure angles, then you're going to hold it perfectly horizontal and perfectly vertical, and use that to find your angles. And you're going to use those techniques to refine the proportions and the angles of your drawing. Now, with time, you'll sight less, and you'll be able to likely do it from your own intuitive perception. But at the beginning, you'll be sighting more, and you'll be doing lots of measurements. And then later on, you'll do measurements when you have to double check something.